Hey everyone, Viv here. In case you missed it, I wanted to let you know that we have a fortnightly email newsletter. We give you the latest recap on all things happening in our community. In there, you'll also be the first to know about our next events, merch drops, and exciting announcements. Head on over to levelasianpodcast.com/newsletter to sign up for the latest. Now, on to the episode.
Every single product launch is always things that you can't prepare for. Even our everyday sofa. Oh my God. The everyday sofa is probably our second sofa. We had that all day sofa. So we're like, cool, we know what we're doing now. This is not the first foray into the sofa world. We've got it down pat. And then we had 2 containers come into Sydney, 2 containers down in Melbourne. I think we opened up one in Melbourne again. And we realized that on the sofa fabric, there were these pen marks on there. And so we had to inquire with the manufacturers and said, oh no, we forgot to rub it out. They put the pen marks and then they cut the fabric, but they forgot to rub out all the pen marks. So like, do you know how many products have pen marks on them? They're like, I had no idea.
Before we get started on today's episode, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast is recorded, the land of the Darug people. We would like to acknowledge and pay respects to our elders past and present and the next generation coming through. Now, on to today's episode. In this episode of the Level Asian podcast, we're joined by Ken and Amanda, the founders of EVA, Australia's award-winning certified B Corp furniture brand. Ken and Amanda share their journey from how they founded EVA, the evolution of the brand, and highlight company milestones and successes, as well as opening up about how they've overcome some of the challenges in e-commerce. We also talk to Ken and Amanda about introverted leadership in business, and they both share their advice for those wanting to enter the e-commerce space. Enjoy the episode. So welcome to the Level Asian podcast. For those who have been listening and have been watching as well, you guys might have seen that we are sitting on some very new sofas from the lovely Amanda and Ken. Do you go by Ken or Kenneth?
Ken's fine. Yeah.
Ken? Okay. Do you guys want to tell us a little bit about these sofas as well? Because you guys have a lot of history with these and there's a lot of designing involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to take it? Product side?
No, Amanda can take this.
This is what's going to happen the entire podcast. But absolutely. So this is our beautiful everyday sofa. It took about 12 to 18 months to design from scratch in Melbourne. So we've got an in-house team. And essentially how the product development process goes is we have the product managers, they go ahead and create a product brief, and that brief is kind of sourced from sort of canvassing the landscape. So from desktop research through to having interviews with customers through our roundtable program, as well as furniture shop hopping. So going and canvassing what the brick and mortar stores are like, and then putting it all together into a sort of product brief that details the product vision, what we want to achieve out of this, who we're targeting. From there, it kind of gets passed on to our design development team, who then design and create a product that meets the brief. And so that's the start of it all. And then from there to launch, we have multiple prototypes that come through, and then we do things like user testing. So we get everybody in the office to go and test the product, from putting the arms and the assembly all together, through to the comfort levels. So for example, the back, the seat, through the lumbar cushions, things like that. And that feedback then gets refined further and further into the final prototype. So I think, how many prototypes did we do for this one?
I think we did 2
prototypes for this before the sort of the mass manufacturing. Of course, for us, it's really important that the products that we launch, everybody in the company is confident in the product, because it's a lot of product that we have to move all around Australia. So we have how many warehouses?
5 warehouses at the moment.
Oh, wow.
Oh, 5 warehouses. Yeah. So they're all stocked in all the warehouses around Australia. And because it's next day delivery, it means that we also have to be in stock. One really great thing about this product, and perhaps the most complex factor of it all, is that it is also modular. So you can have sort of, say right now we've got this two-seater here, but you can also have a corner piece, and that corner piece will then make it then like a 5, 6-seater. And so it is a modular piece, so it grows with you. But of course, that makes it a really hard forecasting challenge, because how many modules do we plan for? Because how many seats are there that can be built with that module piece? So yeah, it's a complex product, but one that I think it's been sold out about 3 times in the last year, which is also very exciting. So very challenging from a supply chain perspective, but also very promising for us, because it means that we've hit product market fit, and that's always a positive.
Yeah, well, I think I'd love to get into the details, because I think when initially we were talking about sort of getting you guys on, I was sort of thinking about how, the fundamental question for me was, how the hell does one start up a furniture company, right? Like it's, I'm stereotyping here that, most Asians start up, law firms and accounting firms and marketing agencies and things like that, service-based businesses. It's not every day that you meet someone, and particularly even Asian Australian, to start up a furniture company. So I'd love to sort of dig into that a little bit deeply, because I think the challenges and the logistics, like you sort of alluded to, are very unique, obviously, to an industry like that. But even before we do that, obviously, we love to sort of wind it all the way back. And I think we'll take turns here. Maybe I'll start with Ken, just about sort of childhood and like growing up, just because you deflected the first question. And you can't deflect this to Amanda unless she's written your biography, then that's a different story. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your sort of childhood upbringing and what that was like?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Malaysian born. I came here when I was 16, so I spent basically half my life, that's how I am essentially, in Malaysia. Childhood in Malaysia was interesting. I think it's quite different from how childhood would be in Australia. I think I spent most of my time studying, to be completely honest with you. Like my first 14 years, I could only remember like going to school, finish school, tuition for like 4 hours. After tuition, it's like homework, after homework, rinse, repeat, essentially. I think it's quite normal in Asian culture that grades and, education is number one. And like, it was a drill every single day. It's only like when I was 15 and I came here, it's like, year 11, year 12, it's like, let's study hard. And it's like, some people that I've met, it's like, I'm actually just studying for the first time, or I'm studying hard for the first time. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, the last 10 years, the last 15 years of my life here, it's been fairly breezy. I was like, that's very different from like where I came from, essentially. But that's the biggest difference, essentially. But yeah, so far it was a great childhood, essentially. And
was it your family who decided to come here, or you yourself, or what was the context there? Yeah,
so obviously my parents wanted like me and my sister to have like a better like life moving forward, and say, hey, that's an opportunity for you to like go to Australia, and we have to do it like really quickly. So they said, hey, what do you think? You're gonna have to leave your friends, you're gonna start over at the age of like 15. And I said, yeah, let's do it. And essentially I mean, like, it was a big jump, big leap for me and my sister, but we said, hey, let's do it, let's give it a go, let's say goodbye to our friends and try something new, essentially. And I think a month later, we were in Australia in a whole brand new school, different culture. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing over here? Like, the language is different. Everyone's acting differently. This guy is 16, but he looks like he's 30, essentially. It's like, but it was an interesting time of my life at the time. My first school I went to was Ivanhoe. So it wasn't really Asian-based community, so I was like thrown deep into like how Australians are, and like had to like acclimatize myself very quickly to like the different cultures, comparison to the Asian culture and Australian culture.
Got it. Yeah. And then after high school, what did you go into? You went to uni, or?
Yeah, so after high school, funny enough, high school, I wanted to be a pharmacist. And the reason why I wanted to be a pharmacist is that, all right, I can run businesses being a pharmacy. And funny enough, I didn't get into pharmacy. I was, I think I missed 1 point from my maths test, basically. And like, I think it was just 1 point away, and like I couldn't get into it. So essentially, Asian parents was like, hey, let's get you into something that's going to pay you really well. When you sat down, no, we didn't look at what to do. It wasn't law. Okay, Ken, you might not be as smart as a person to get into law or doctor. Okay, let's strike that off right now. I mean, all right, let's go into engineering right now. So, all right, let's break down what engineering that you want to do. And like electrical engineering was one of the top of the list, essentially. And it's like, okay, let's do it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do electrical engineering. I had no idea I could get in, and I jumped into it.
Right. Did you enjoy it?
No. Like, I disliked it so much. Like, but you know, like Asian families and stuff, like once you get into it, you have to finish it. Yeah. It's not like, hey, sorry, I'm gonna defer. I'm gonna like skip school right now, I'm going to cancel anything like now. So I disliked the moment I got into it the first year, and for 4 years I just powered through, you know, every semester, everything. I was like doing all I can just to like pass on, where there's an opportunity to get like a B or maybe A. I was like, oh my God, I'm doing so well in class, but there was no love for it. But funny enough, like after engineering as well, I actually got a job in an engineering firm essentially. But no, that kind of like cemented like my dislike for engineering. That's like, oh, this is just not for me. And I think that's...
Sorry.
There you go.
No, I was just going to ask, how long were you there for?
I was there for like 1.5 years. And it was an interesting period because like I think like having a first job, you tend to have like a lot of experiences, right? Like this is the industry or this is how work was supposed to be. That company I went to wasn't the best company, I would say. Like I experienced like bullying and racism like firsthand in the workplace. It was like, wow, this is not great basically for like someone that's coming into workplace first. I wasn't paying very well as well. So it's like, wow, there's so many things that just made me dislike work. And this is my first year out from work and I have to work like another 30 years. It's like, what is life essentially? And I think from there, that was like the moment like, hey, if this is how you run a company, I think that I can do a little bit of a better job having a better company. And obviously like, it wasn't something like, I'm just going to do it. I had experience like running small businesses during my uni times. I was like obsessed with e-commerce. And that kind of went back to my parents as well. My parents ran like a small, like a mom and pop retail shop where they buy and sell stuff. So that was always been in my blood. And having that rush of buying and selling stuff is like amazing. I grew up with it. So I was like, all right, e-commerce, obsessed with it, ran like a bunch of like eBay businesses that failed quite tremendously. And I figured like, I have some savings for my full-time job. Like let's invest everything I can have. No family, I have no house, no kids. No, now's the only time to do it. And that's when I kind of took the leap after like 1.5 years. I just jump out and like scale out. And I did something that maybe I wouldn't recommend anyone. I just quit my job entirely without a plan.
You're right. So didn't really sort of have a plan in place in the sense of like, other than just leaping straight into it. And then you said didn't tell anyone either.
Exactly. Like I had an idea of what I might do, but it wasn't like ready to go. Like most people would get that set up ready to go. For me, I had an idea. I quit my job. I knew I had like a couple of months runway, and I locked myself in a storage facility for 2 months straight, just hammering it. And essentially on the month 3, that's when the eBay store launched. And that's when the whole entire story of like my entrepreneur journey started.
So was that eBay business to do with something similar to EVA, or was it something completely different? What were you selling?
I would say similar product, but very different business model. I mean, similar business model, similar products as well, but very different. It was actually a mattress brand and a mountain bike brand.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
They're two very different things.
They're two very different things. Exactly. But it was the opportunity. Like there was a gap in the market that was missing from like good quality product. And at that time for eBay, you could launch like direct to consumer brands, and you still can right now, except that how much you purchase is slightly different. So it's towards the lower end, I would say. So I did my market research. I went into it, a mattress, a mountain bike brand, got that off the ground in 2 months time. I flew to China, met the manufacturer, got that set up by myself. Actually, it's not by myself. I dragged my dad along with me. I paid for my, hey, Dad, you're just gonna show face because like I'm too young of a kid.
You wouldn't get taken seriously.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just gonna bring you and say like you're the big boss. I'm gonna do all your talking, and he literally just got a free ride, and he's like to China, had meals, and he was like the guy that kind of kept the conversation going because he had Chinese, and I was the guy like negotiating like behind the scenes as well. And yeah, that's basically how things got started. Container came in, I think maybe a month later, month 4 or 5. That's when most of the products are. In Australia. So
I was going to say, I want to pause there because I want to know Amanda's story, and then what I'm going to do is I just want to join it together somehow, and how you guys met, and then we can move into sort of more of the business stuff. So do you want to sort of cover your childhood growing up as well, Amanda?
Yep, sure. So I'm from New Zealand, and I was there since I was, I think, 8. I moved to Australia when I was 8 with my family. I remember distinctly in the airport having no idea what was going on, and next minute I was in Australia. And then the first thing I remember when I arrived here was I was like, Mom, there's so many trees. I just remember that as my first memory of Australia. And then I guess I've just sort of been, what have I been doing? Just going through childhood, primary school, high school. Funnily enough, what Ken said around doing homework, I remember in grade 6, a teacher pulled me aside because she said to me that she noticed I wasn't doing my homework, which I then replied to her, I'm like, isn't homework for school?
Yep.
And then she said, no, you're meant to do homework at home. In which case I was like, oh, I had no idea. Right. So for the entire year, or throughout the entire primary school, I had not been doing any homework until grade 6.
Oh.
A teacher pulled me aside and said, you need to start doing your homework.
Because it's called homework.
Nobody explained it to me. I just never did it. So I think that was the first time I actually did homework. And then when I shared the story with Ken, he was obviously very shocked because you've been doing tutoring since you were like 5 years old.
God, so much homework.
But yeah, no, I think, and then in sort of after high school, I actually wanted to do law. So I missed out. I didn't get in. I think I missed by like 0.5 of a score to get into
commonalities between the two of you. Yeah.
Just missed out and then I realized, okay, what else can I do? Let's do psychology. And I kind of did my 4-year undergrad and another 2 years in my master's and came out as a clinical neuropsychologist and did my endorsement program. And it was sort of around that time that I was just started my sort of endorsement program that I kind of had some free time, because I was waiting for my registration to come through, and without a registration, you can't apply for any psych jobs. So I was like, Ken, I need to do some things. And so that was when, around that time, Ken's businesses were sort of winding down. We had to take a different direction. Did you want to talk a little bit about your mattress?
Question before you do that, how did you guys meet?
Oh, yes.
How do we meet?
How did we meet?
I think it was just
clearly not memorable, was it?
It was memorable. It wasn't through the dating apps. I think the dating apps was just starting back then.
Yeah, okay.
I think Tinder was within the first or second year of like existence back then. I think
it wasn't through Tinder.
No, it wasn't through Tinder. We met at the bar.
We met
old-fashioned way, was it?
Old-fashioned way, yeah.
Friend of a friend. It was like one of those end of year exams party get-togethers.
Got it.
And
this is uni days, basically.
Yeah, we had almost just finished uni, final year of uni, I think.
No, we both finished uni at the time. Yeah. And then we had the same group of friends, but we just never met each other.
Right.
And I think Amanda was there. It's like, oh, who's this guy? And obviously I was talking to some of the friends. I was by myself and I was pretty shy as well. And it's like, you know what? I'm just going to say hi to this lonely guy. But for the record, she made the first move and I took it from there essentially.
Nice. And then, okay, so going back to the whole, you were winding up your business. Was that the eBay businesses that you're talking about?
Yeah, that's right. So back to the story, I did the mountain bike brand and the mattress brand. I scaled it up really quickly within the first 12 months. And it was pretty good. I think I was around 24 at the time as well, scaled up to close to like $1 million revenue.
Wow.
Yeah. And 24 is like, wow, this is great. This is easy. Yeah, you know what I mean? But, it doesn't mean that you have $1 million in the bank.
Correct, yeah.
You have very little once you start paying for everything. But very quickly, I learned a couple of business lessons because what goes up kind of goes down as well. One of the business lessons I've learned is that I couldn't build a brand on eBay. Like, every day compares to coming in hammering prices and realize that a lot of customers are actually loyal to the price and not the brand, which is fair as a marketplace. And I was trying to build a brand there. So didn't really work and resonate with the customer. And the second challenge I had was one of the brand that I had at that time was very similar to another brand in the market. So I had a trademark infringement and I got a letter from the brand saying that, hey, you gotta stop selling whatever you're selling. And this was around 12 months once I've started ramping. Yeah, I've got a letter. Spoke to the lawyer. It's like, hey, I've got a letter. It's like, yeah, Ken, you didn't do your checks essentially, and like you definitely infringed on this brand. And like I was like, oh crap, this is not good. And basically said, all right, let me off the hook. What can I do? And they said, all right, we need all your stocks, all of them. And it's like, fine. I'll give you all my stocks. And all the stocks that I had was basically all the profit that I made during that year for that product line. So I sent it all to them. It was in containers, I think 2 or 3 containers.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, so it's like, all right, have them for free.
So what were they, if you don't mind me asking, what were they asking for initially in the letter? Were they asking for royalties? Were they asking for...
No, I think they're looking for damages basically, but they realized that I was just kid. Yeah, and then I had no money. I wasn't like a big player in the market. And so, all right, maybe the best way forward is just to get his stock and like cease and
Just like
desist and
they
stop.
did you guys have the same manufacturer or something? Like why?
No,
how
it
would
was
be so
just a
similar?
brand. I didn't do my checks. So one of
the
them,
name?
just a very similar name.
Oh, it was a name.
It was a
wasn't
name.
the-
Yeah,
It wasn't the product.
It wasn't a product. It was just a name.
Oh,
And like it wasn't a sticker because it was a bike
Yep.
brand at the time, so everything was sprayed on, so I couldn't even change the label on anything. So that was it. The bike brand was gone overnight,
okay.
and I was left with the mattress brand. I was like, all right, I really want to build a brand. This is not the platform to do it. And then I spoke to Amanda, said, hey, we got to do something a little bit different to like build a brand moving forward.
Yeah, I think like it was, even though, you know, that time was a really hard time for Ken, the bright side is then that created an opportunity to see what else we can do. And I think with the mattress, we realized that at least in the industry, that there were a lot of these sort of online mattress brands popping up. And I guess what that indicated to us was that there was this sort of gap in the market, because all of a sudden people who used to be purchasing these really big, bulky products from brick and mortar are moving online. And I think that was kind of catalyzed by the trial at the time. It was kind of this new, amazing, really shiny thing, and people were attracted to it because it's something that the traditional retailers weren't offering.
Right.
And so given that Ken had this sort of background with mattress manufacturing, and the manufacturers were quite happy to work with us as well, we decided to then say, okay, let's see how we can create a mattress that would fit our brand. And I guess from there, we talked to the manufacturers, and they actually have this really good experience with more premium high-end mattresses, because they do manufacture for sort of the hotel, so luxury chains around the world. And so they were quite happy for us to move higher from an eBay model to a more premium mattress. And so given that we had that connection already, like, cool, let's do this. And so that's how EVA started.
Well, sorry, real quick. I'm jumping around the place a little bit, but about you and your dad's trip to China.
Yeah.
Davey and I actually, although we can conclusively say we are failures at e-commerce, because Davey and I, this was, I can't remember when, I think this was about 7 years ago. And we were like, let's go to the Canton Fair, which is obviously, for context for everyone, is like this, like the world's biggest manufacturing fair. You go there and like every manufacturer and their dog is there. And anything you basically want, you can find there, right?
Yep.
And I just remember the sheer overwhelm of figuring out, firstly, because we didn't, and this is so stupid now in hindsight, we didn't even have an idea what we were going to sell. So we just went there just blankly looking for like opportunities, right? And I saw things like 8K TVs or 12K TVs, right down to like small just USBs. But dealing with sort of manufacturers was always this sort of black box that I had. So when you went to China with your dad, did you have a game plan? Who you want to talk to, what you were going to do? Because I'm actually very curious, and I think there's a lot of people curious about this, because I feel like a lot of, and this is a long question, a lot of people who want to start businesses do tend to, in my experience, veer towards a product-based business, whether it's e-com or some sort of, product innovation. So yeah, if you can walk us through sort of how you approach that.
Yeah, so I did go to Canton Fair as well, and that didn't help. Just there was too many options, and yeah, you definitely need to have a game plan. So I think back then the eBay model was a little bit more open, where you can actually see like the volume that they have for each supplier, each eBay seller, basically, and you can see the revenue as well. I think eBay has stopped that since.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I was able to track, and that's how I actually track like mattresses and mountain bike brands.
Right.
That's a gap essentially, and mattresses was a massive revenue. It still is a massive revenue right now for one that wants to start. So that's how I knew that those are the products that you want that I was going to go into, and I kind of like, all right, I need to have some passion with the products as well, because some of the products I did before was like, I can't remember, it was protein shake and like iPhone covers and stuff. I had no like passion for those products. You kind of have to love some of the products that you get into as well. So those two products were yeah, it was good. When there, I actually spoke to a bunch of manufacturers. So I kind of like both manufacturer, I went on Alibaba immediately and I started contacting like, I would say maybe 30 or 40 suppliers for each, and started like, all right, some of the process that I went through was like, I can't speak Chinese, so I need someone that can speak very good English. And assuming that they can speak good English means that they would have done international sales before.
Right.
They can probably help me through that. So anyone that didn't meet that mark in terms of speaking English, they got cut immediately. The next thing was like, first impressions and how quick they respond to. Quicker response means that better service means that I can get things done with them. So that's the second phase. And after that process, I think I was left with like 3 or 4 suppliers for each brand itself. I remember that the mattress took a little bit longer because there's too many suppliers. But for the mountain bike brand, I managed to start and conclude an idea of like an ordering plan within a day. I was
that quick?
Yeah, I was using Skype then, found supplier, went on chat, and supplier jumped on immediately, could speak really good English and start chatting, start swapping ideas and plans and stuff. And by, I think after 5 hours talking with Skype, like we were like, all right, great. Like the only thing right now is that I need to see a manufacturing capability and like get a sample up. So we can move really quickly if you get the right people in place. The mattress was a little bit slower because back then, like, I had to learn a lot about the materials as well. And
so you educating yourself.
So I had to like, all right, I need to understand it. And I was like, all right, please teach me. And like they sent me like all this bunch of materials and stuff. I'm like, okay, give me like a week. I need to understand. I got to study them and I got to see them. So I had to fly up to China to actually see the product and understand it before I can make any decisions in terms of creating it. The mountain bike is a little bit different because it's very technical based. It's made from like iron, metal, and steel. Yeah, so simple. And that's basically the process of how I started it. And to go into deeper, I do decide like what cost price what sale price I was going to sell for the market. So I kind of work backwards from there to understand, all right, this is the cost price. And then understanding the cost price, you probably have to make like some small adjustments to like your materials. You can't be selling like a really high-end mattress if your cost price is going to be quite low. So there's a balancing act over there that I would say the supply did help me. I would say, I said, hey, this is my target price and what can you do for me? And you kind of push and pull a little bit from there. And
EVA then came about after this when you guys were talking together, and was EVA also the mattress brand or was something different? So EVA leveraged the experience and the manufacturing capability. So I had a mattress brand on eBay. I wind that down because it's a different brand with a different price point and it was a different market as well. Yep. And with the experience that we got, all right, let's start a new brand completely and let's get new materials in as well to make this actually worth the price that we're selling for. Yeah. And what year was this?
2017.
2017.
So you've been operating for 5 or 6 years now? Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do you want to walk us through the process there? Was EVA in year 1? How different was it to EVA now?
Ooh. Oh, so different.
Tell us more.
So different. We called ourselves EVA Mattress. So we were evamattress.com.au.
Oh,
and we were solely a sleep company. Yeah. So it was just the single product offering. It was just a mattress in a box. And our brand was all blue and stars and moons and like the most, oh my gosh. If you're thinking about it now, I have screenshots in my head of how cringy all the branding was and like everybody was in the pajamas and the photo shoot to now where we are, where it's more than just, furniture and sleep. It's like home. What does home mean? It means to be able to feel at home, comfort and security and then safety and, just being able to, be yourself. And so where we moved from there till now, it's a huge change, but also a lot of failures and learnings and painful experiences along the way as well. Yeah.
So then what are the big milestones, I guess, during the last 5 or 6 years for you guys to get to where you are now? Particularly, I'm curious about going from mattresses to then sofas, right? Which seems like, while similar, I imagine from maybe even a technical standpoint, quite different, as you mentioned. So yeah, what's that sort of journey like over the last few years?
So I think that there's a few, like from a team makeup side of things, we quickly decided that, firstly, backtracking, we had to make the decision whether we want to be a mattress brand or a furniture brand. And I think that's where both Amanda and I sat down like, all right, what's the next 5 years? Because the mattress was getting traction, it was selling. And like, all right, is it going to be a one-off or is it going to be like a long-term business that we see that we can build legacy on? And quickly we said, all right, most likely we're not going to be a mattress brand because it's going to take like 8 years for the next customer to come back. It's possible, but we probably have to go scale across the world. And both Matt and I don't have the experience and the capital to scale at that size. So, all right, let's go into product diversification. And what's after mattresses is either more mattresses or furniture. And very quickly we decide, all right, let's do furniture because that's a massive market as well, if not bigger than mattresses. And we realized that the furniture industry is quite sleepy at the same time. A lot of it is...
Oh, really?
Yeah. Surprisingly, a lot of the furniture industry is like, most, not all, would go to the factory. It's like, I like the sofa, let's change the colors, maybe the shape a little bit, and let's ship that in.
So white labeling.
And it's good. It works for a lot of the brands out there. But we figure like, let's bring a more customer-centric approach to this, because with them doing white labeling, it's a 16-week lead time, because there's no customer centricity. There's like, when you go to store, there's like 100 sofas. You pick it, you pay a deposit, they make it for you. It's like, all right, we need things faster. We need things which is delivered the next day. We need things in a box with flat pack. So after talking to suppliers and manufacturers, we realized that we had to build the team in-house. So one of the biggest challenges is actually changing how we were back then as a mattress company, which was actually a marketing team to actually an in-house product design development team,
so
integrated
innovation, basically.
Exactly. And then we had to build that. And look, building the furniture, I wouldn't say that it's like we invented something new, but we invented the thinking of it. Basically, we brought the customer centricity side. We are confident that we can bring in 500 sofas, because we know that the 500 sofas can move, because we've done the research, in comparison to companies where, I'll wait for your order, then I'll place you the manufacturer, and you wait for 16 weeks. So that's a slight difference.
I think that's why it takes that 12 to 18 months for us to be really sure that this product is something that customers want, because it's a lot. It's a huge investment to say when it's stocking all over Australia. And so we need to be confident. So that means doing all the checks from, even just talking to customers directly. And, we have Zoom interviews with customers where we say, okay, here's a prototype of our product. Please don't tell anyone. But also, what do you think? What do you think of this feature? Would you prefer it in this color, or do you prefer this height or this height? Or what do you think of the back? Or how would you prefer it delivered? And things like that. And we just canvas all of that sort of customer behavior and also their insights, and then try and feed it into the product so that when it is launched, we are relatively confident. There's still anxiety at every single product launch, but at least we're confident in ourselves that we've done all that we can until that point when we launch.
This episode is produced and brought to you by Social Wave. Social Wave is a strategic content marketing agency helping businesses grow revenue using video, podcasts, and SEO. Head on over to socialwave.com.au to find out more. Now back to the show.
I guess as a consumer, and I sort of think about recently having to buy furniture, is you're 100% right. I feel like even now, besides maybe a handful of businesses, that most furniture suppliers are still going that old school method of put your order in, there's a delay, and then they go and manufacture, and then you get it in, right? And then there's sort of the other end of the spectrum, like your Temple and Webster's, who are just literally white label. Like, they have not put any effort. They're just marketing teams, essentially. And everything's highly commoditized, essentially, or it's just, basically direct from the manufacturer. There's some drop shipping elements to it. So I really appreciated the experience, although we got these sofas for free. So I can't but certainly I think even working with your team, because I think we made some, we made some changes. I think we initially went with a certain number of 2 sofas, and then we had to slightly change it or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but the customer service experience was something that really stuck out for me, and how responsive everyone was. Right through to just the speed of the delivery, knowing when it's going to come, what time, and things like that, which is, I can see sort of both of you are very, how do I say, detailed focused people, right? When it comes to right from the product right through to the actual customer experience. Is that something that you guys have really put a focus on, or is that something that just, you're like, there's a gap in the market, we want to do it? Or how did that sort of come about?
I think it's, it kind of speaks to what we like to talk about internally, is this just thoughtfulness as a brand and thoughtfulness as individuals. So when we hire people, it's like, how thoughtful are you? How detail oriented are you? Or what do you think about when we do something like this? What will the customer think? Yeah. And so being thoughtful as a brand is something that we all rally around. And so from customer experience through to the product design, through the marketing, it's all embedded into the culture internally. And hopefully that means that our website and our customers who then experience everything that EVA does also feels like somebody's put thought into the product as well and their experience.
And retail at the end of the day is a lot about the details and just the execution. So we figured a lot of these pain points that we have right now from the customer experience is the pain points that normal customers would have. If someone were bought a furniture through the traditional side, it's like, 16 weeks, can I have an update? When's it coming? There's no one contacting me.
Delays
so we
transactional as well. It's sort of like, cool, you've got the product. Like, for example, one of my friends, she ordered a couch from a brick and mortar store and it didn't realize that it wouldn't fit through her front door. And so what they had to do was they had to carry the couch and they tucked it behind her front, her sort of gate, because in her backyard she's got a sliding door and that's the only way they could get it in the house. And it's just these little things that you're like, oh my gosh, if they had thought about how exactly is this customer going to experience their product, then it's kind of like that's what's lacking in the market.
I have a question, because again, going off of what Ken has said about the detail, very detail oriented, both of you, not just psychologically and how the customer experiences things, but also physically with the product themselves, like being modular, thinking about every single step along the way. I am just wondering, like backtracking back to you both going to uni, doing certain degrees, have those both played a part in how you guys implement different skills into the business and what you guys bring to the table as well? Maybe we'll start with Amanda.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think clinical neuropsychology is an incredibly esoteric line of work. Nobody knows what it is. It's okay. None of my friends or my family still know what it is to this day, and it's okay. We've moved past that now. It's okay. So clinical neuropsychology is the study of cognition. So my line of work was largely assessment of cognitive disorders. So I was looking mostly in aging and dementias and traumatic brain injuries or developmental disorders. And it's a lot about assessment and a little bit of treatment where there is treatment. But I guess how that fed into what I'm doing now at EVA, basically how we split up the company is Ken looks after the product, the operations and supply chain, whereas I look after the people, the marketing and the customer. And you can kind of see where my background in neuropsychology or psychology as a whole kind of feeds into that side of the business, whilst Ken's sort of strengths, and especially from engineering, feeds into that side of the business. And that's kind of how we work together. And we set very strict boundaries as to I'm not allowed to talk about product and he's not allowed to talk about marketing. Or even if we do, we kind of set decision makers as I make decisions here and you make decisions there.
Yeah, engineering is about solving problems. That's something that we've been trained on from day one. And I think that's very helpful when it comes to like just operation stuff. Operation stuff is about just getting stuff done and solving it, getting stuff done, move on to the next thing. And it's definitely helped, I would say. Are
you able to share some of the numbers, not necessarily, we're not talking about financials, but just like, when you sort of reached out to us, I didn't know about the EVA brand before this, right? And so obviously naturally what you do is you sort of start to look around and get an understanding, and then obviously working with, team member Ray and a few other team members, I was like, this is a big company, like as in you guys have got, not just the warehouses, the 5 warehouses around the country. Are there any sort of stats you can share around how big it's become, I guess, how many sofas you're selling, things like that?
I think we've sold over 70,000 products over the last, I think 5 years.
5, 6 years.
Yeah. And
that sort of, as we've diversified, that retention rate has also it's doubled every year. So now in the last month alone, we've hit about, I think 23% retention, which means that customers that would have bought from us in the past are coming back for our new products. And it's kind of beautiful because you kind of see this EVA ecosystem building and building on itself. So I think part of our sort of future plans are to continue diversifying our range.
Our average order value has moved up from $700 to almost $1,200 right now. So you do the math of $1,200 or $70,000 over a period of 5 years. I mean, the company has grown significantly over the last 5 years as well. So interesting stats. I think I would say that a lot of stats would have grown really quickly if company was funded, for example. But it's moving up.
Oh, so you're 100% bootstrapped.
100% bootstrapped at the moment. So
we've always thought about more that sustainable growth. Because I think when we built the brand, it was always thinking about this is going to be we want it to be a legacy household brand. And that doesn't happen in 5 years. It's you think about all the retailers that you think about now, they've been around for how many decades? And we want to be that many decades old. So right now it might seem like everything's moving really, really fast, but it's also really, really slow because we've only been around for 6 years. And a lot of our really big brick and mortar competitors have been around for way, way, way longer. So it's thinking about that, I think, the infinite game, which everybody always talks about it, but it's also so true.
And I don't know what the sort of expectations are on most furniture businesses or owners of furniture businesses. Is it really about like sort of like buying to sell? Is it, building to sell, or is it really sort of around legacy and long-term play, that sort of stuff? Like what sort of, is it sort of both sides or?
It's a good question, actually. I think it comes down, I think the angle depends on where we are. Everyone that goes into business is like to be straight, like do they dislike something, they want to create something there to make money. How they make it can be quite different. Some people make it sell, IPO, some of it just keeps the business long-term in the family and maybe get dividends from it. For this, we are very, at this moment, we do enjoy the business, and we've been putting our heart and soul into it for the last 6 years. We've bootstrap it. We didn't take any, haven't taken anything off the table. We want to build a brand that can run by itself, that, our kids eventually would say, hey, I want to buy a couch from EVA one day. Like how some of the big brands has been around for 50 years saying that, hey, this is what we're going to do. So I think most importantly, it's like we want to build the value and the brand power right now. Then obviously when, the time comes and we'll assess like how our life is, that I think naturally like the exit strategy will fall into place. Once we get all our margins and all our numbers in line here, the exit strategy will become very clear for us. So I think a lot of people decide to like, hey, this is exit strategy and let's build towards it, but they don't necessarily have the right numbers. And you can sometimes see like, especially in the US, a lot of direct to consumer brands right now have like really high revenues, but they've gone onto market and gone IPO. And now majority of them are maybe 50% or 100% down in terms of stock price because they didn't have the
business fundamentals.
They're not making money at the end of the day. Maybe your investors cashed out, but the brand's probably not going to survive for the next 5 or 10 years if it continues like that. And while it looks sexy, but at the end of the day, business is about creating jobs and actually sustaining over the long term.
Because I feel really conflicted about seeing that sometimes, and like that just because maybe lack of knowledge and understanding what these people are doing. But I think certainly from like almost like a churn and burn type mentality when it comes to business. And I don't actually hear or see that many more businesses these days focused on, sort of building a long-term sustainable and even like maybe even like intergenerational businesses, like you talk about family businesses and like, using Japan as an example of how many family businesses, small and large out there that are like passing it down for multiple generations. Now it's just all about how fast can I grow? How quick can I get that top line revenue? And then how can I get that valuation up so that I can sell, cash out, and then whatever happens to the brand afterwards. And then you guys are sort of doing the opposite way where, you're looking at it from a more sustainable, approach as well. So, so going back to eBay, because eBay would have been the main channel of sales.
Yep.
And then then obviously getting off eBay and then going to a more upmarket product. Where were these sales coming from? Because obviously eBay wouldn't be in the main one. So sales and marketing, what was the go-to-market strategy there?
So we launched our own website. At the start, it was a lot of outsourcing to agencies. So we met up with agencies around Melbourne and then had them look after our search and social. And then, of course, our website dev, we also was a freelancer who helped out as well. And then just hit go. Obviously at the start, it was so scary because I don't think we hit break even until about 6 months, 6 months down the line. And by that point, we were quite fortunate because we also won this sort of award for our mattress, which helped to then catapult that sort of social proof, that authority side of things, especially in a landscape where there was just so many new competitors jumping on board. I think within the first year we had almost tripling of competitors, went from like 20 to 60 in one year.
Really? Okay.
And so we were like, oh my God, like how do we then suddenly stand out against the masses? So that really helped us. And then we then hired our first employee by month 6, which was a marketing person, because at the time I was only working, I think, after hours. It's because I was still doing neuropsych. And then within, I think, 2 years or within the next year, I then dropped my hours in neuropsych, did sort of part-time EVA, part-time neuropsych, and then went full-time about 3 years ago. No, 4 years ago.
Yep.
4 years ago.
And were there any like big moments or big strategies that you thought, right, it took you to the next level, right? Or was it always just gradual, slow and steady, besides the award, obviously?
I think having the partnership with the award really helped, because at the time when we won that award, I think that business was also starting up as well. And so we kind of both, having won that award, we kind of went, okay, great. How do we help each other grow our businesses together? And that really helped both of us. But that really put us on the map, I think. From there,
Combination of like
we brought search and social insight in-house. So once we hired that marketing person, we're like, cool, let's stop with the agency. Let's move quicker, execute with speed, creatives internal, media buying internal, and that was how everything is just sort of
so
ramped
your
up
full end-to-end marketing is done internally now.
Yes.
Because I think there's not many businesses that are willing to invest in that, because most of the time it's easier to outsource. I'm an agency, so I know this firsthand. But to take it in-house is actually very admirable, because you sort of realize how much work there is, because the creative is like one aspect. And then of course, then you've got the, the media buying aspect. And then if you want to do organic and a whole bunch of other sort of marketing material, but it does make you more agile, makes you a lot sort of, I guess, faster to be able to get things out as well. So besides obviously the award, have there been any sort of other, major, I guess, wins during this process? And then the flip side is, have you had any struggle points or any failures or challenges, which I imagine you do because Ken's smiling at me, through this, the last 5 or 6 years that, set you guys up for success or future success?
We can talk about quickly on the wins really quickly at the moment, but a lot of challenges. I think a lot of the wins, like Amanda said, things move really quickly over time. It was compounding, and that's where we started growth. And we treat each product line as a business growth as well. So like the timber bed frame was also another big win for us. Like the moment it came out, we managed to double the business size in terms of headcount and revenue. From memory, the bed frame was where it pushed us from a seven-figure business to an 8-figure business, basically. That's how we managed to scale. And subsequently, all the other products that came in as well kind of pushed us, like nudged us now 30% year on year, 40% year on year as well. So I think the product growth is key to it at the same time. And at the same time, the marketing teams is growing each product line to get more market share, because obviously our market share is tiny in comparison to like what we can at the moment.
And then any challenges, I suppose, you mentioned competitors, that's one.
Definitely. Well, when we, even the product development for the bed frame was a huge challenge. So at that time, when we first designed it, amazing, great. We actually worked with a local woodmaker. So it was a little workshop about 5 minutes around the corner from our office. Nice. And essentially it was at the time, it was made to order, it was pre-order. We wanted to just test the markets with this product. And so every time an order would come in, it's like, cool, we'd send it off to the guys around the corner and they would make it for us. And then what had happened was that we started getting more traction, and suddenly the orders kept coming in and the guys couldn't keep up. There was only just 2 of them. They were just making it for us. They couldn't keep up with the number of orders that they had to fulfill within a certain period of time we had promised to the customers. And so then we had to pivot, like, okay, how do we actually service these orders? We had to then look offshore. And this was almost around like COVID time. We had to set up a huge its own manufacturing line via WeChat with these guys we had never sort of met in real life before.
Because you couldn't travel to.
We couldn't travel. And basically had to send them our product from Melbourne to their warehouse so that they could try and create it for us.
It was like setting up the manufacturing line for the bed frame from scratch online through WeChat was probably one of the most challenging things that I've ever done. That was exhausting, because that was the first time that any of us, the China side, the Australian side, communicating online, had to figure out how to work without face-to-face. And like I mentioned before, they're so specific to our product line that we had to talk technical terms into the manufacturing, like the machineries and stuff, through videos and chats, which was like, it was nonstop. It was like a 24-hour. My job was 24/7 just on WeChat trying to get the manufacturing up, scaling it. But we managed to get there. Took longer than it should have, but over time we got there. We had a couple of runs, a couple of failures when couple of containers where it didn't meet the mark in terms of quality. Basically. That was
but there's a story there when we had finally committed to, you know, this is what we're going to manufacture. This is the golden prototype. So we had containers come into Melbourne and to Sydney and Queensland as well. And we were like, cool, let's open up a box and test it here in our office in Melbourne. And we all put it together. And then our head of design was like, cool, this looks pretty good. And then he stepped on it and everything crumpled.
Whoa.
At that moment, our hearts sank because we're like, oh my God, we have so many containers around the country with this product. All right. What are we going to do?
Yeah. And as a bootstrap company, that was one of the all-in moments, you know, like, let's go all in, like poker essentially, and there's no backing out. It's like, okay, crap, we have literally everything that we have in this business tied up in like the 3 containers right now. So basically the only way to solve is to give up or, you know, just work through it.
Keep going.
Work through it. It's like, all right, it was me and the designer then saying, all right, let's ship all the bait frames from Queensland, Sydney into our own Melbourne warehouse. We got a Melbourne warehouse that's dedicated to us. We got about, I think, 150 to 200 bait frames. All shipped in within a week. We opened up every single one, checked it, and I would say 95% of it's broken.
My God.
We fixed it. It was me and this guy.
You fixed it?
We fixed everything.
What did you do? What do you mean by fix?
So what happened was that it wasn't glued properly, So the 2 pieces broke because the glue wasn't stuck on. So what happened was that we just took everything out, we sanded them down, and we started gluing it, essentially. So we became the manufacturing line. It was exhausting, I would say, but you know, that got us through because that was it. That was the moment whether you give up or you continue on, and we pushed through without fail, and we worked day and night to get that over, send it to customers. And at the same time, customers were still buying from us, and customers didn't know this was happening, right? So it's like, okay.
It was all fire in the back.
So we're like, all right, how do we fulfill this order? So we actually went back to the guys that made this locally to say, hey, can we make some in Australia to keep us going? And those guys were churning like stuff locally in Brunswick, trying to get as many out to customers that's buying while we're trying to fix it. And anything that we can fix, we send it to customers. So we had like, you know, version A, version B going out to customers essentially. And it was intense.
Are you still working with the same manufacturer?
Same person,
All right.
So
they have learned. So that was a few years ago now, but since then it's definitely improved. Thank goodness.
Definitely one of the most challenging like products that we've ever dealt with. And from there, but I think a lot of it was great because like as we pushed through, then we learned like, all right, you know, this is all the lessons that we had for that we can bring on to the next product.
Kind of created a playbook, almost like documentation of, okay, what not to do and what to do. And built from there. But I think even with every single product launch, there's always things that you can't prepare for. So like even our everyday sofa, oh my God, there's a story behind this product. So, you know, the everyday sofa is probably our second sofa. We had that all day sofa. So we're like, cool, we know what we're doing now. This is not the first foray into the sofa world. We've got it down pat. And then we had 2 containers come into Sydney, 2 containers down in Melbourne. And I think we opened up one in Melbourne again. And we're like, cool, let's check it out. And we realized that on the sofa fabric, there were these pen marks on there. And so we had to inquire with the manufacturers and said, oh no, we forgot to rub it out because they put the pen marks and then they cut the fabric, but they forgot to rub out all the pen marks. So we're like, do you know how many products have pen marks on them? They're like, I had no idea. Whoa. So then what did we have to do?
We opened every single box in Melbourne and Sydney.
We flew up to Sydney. And I remember it was during like the floods or something. It was really, really hot and humid. So we were all in the office, like 3 or 4 of us. Sorry, in the warehouse, 3 or 4 of us. And there was sort of 2 containers. And all of us with our high vis on went in, opened up the boxes, put them all in lines and rows and rows and rows, and opened up and cleaned. Put it back in.
So to put into context, this probably came in like 1, 2, maybe about 6 boxes. We had to deal probably about north of 400 over boxes between 2 states. So open up each one, everything's wrapped in plastic, take them out from plastic, check it from all sides, the seams and stuff, anything, rub it off, pack back, and we had to check. Apparently it was wrong label as well.
So the boxes were incorrectly labeled as well. So if you think about from the warehousing guys, they don't open it up. They have to look at the labels to see is this a green couch in this size. So that was all wrong. So we then had to relabel all of them and put them all back in and repackaged everything for launch.
Holy shit. Did you tell your customers about this story?
No.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah, behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes.
Wow.
But what made it all worth it was, I think we were out there for 2 days doing all of that with 1-2 other staff. And then we were waiting for the taxi to go back to the airport to go back home. And that was when we got our first Everyday Sofa sale.
Oh, how ironic.
And so we're like, oh my God, this is worth it. Because we were just standing there and it was like raining and we were all like so exhausted from like 2 days worth of packing, cleaning, putting it all back in, and then suddenly got the sale. We're like, okay, it's fine, guys. It was worth all that pain.
Yeah. It's great to hear like all of the challenges that go on behind the scenes, because obviously if anyone has seen your website, it's gorgeous. The way that your branding is, all the marketing, it's beautifully curated. And I know that there are heaps of challenges with product lines and testing all the products, etc. However, I also know that when we spoke on our prep call, that there are also challenges with, say, building the team and also expanding as well, especially in-house. You guys both mentioned that you're both very introverted people. And it might not seem that way to some people because, Amanda, especially yourself, you're on the face of TikTok, Instagram, doing podcasts and whatnot. So you guys also mentioned that being leaders as well, especially for, again, a team that is local, you have a few challenges of, how do I put this, showing up and being a very strong leader and also a loud leader and the expectations of that. So would you be able to tell us about how you've been able to navigate that and balance both personalities between each other?
Yeah, with great difficulty. How do we do it? I think
we just have to push ourselves, because at the end of the day, everyone's coming to work to believe in, to follow the company, to follow us, and realize that if we don't step up to the plate, this is not going to be a success. And we've gone too far with all these challenges that we've gone through to not make this work. And it was something that we had to make. We made a decision to say, all right, while we were introvert, we will choose up the proper time just to be a bit extrovert when we can. And I think it's hard, but with a little bit of practice, it got easier over time. And just being a leader, I think being a leader is challenging. Even now, I think we struggle with that as well. I think there's always times that we can communicate more to the team. We can have opinions more often, if not, but I think it's getting the feedback from the team to say, hey, what do you guys like to see from us? And they tend to be pretty honest. They say like, it would be great if you guys can have a Q&A on the monthly session. And it's like, okay, that's what we're going to be doing right now. We ask them what they need. We keep ourselves accountable to it and keep pushing essentially and get feedback. So it's a feedback loop. Like I believe that we can be better in terms of like small incrementation by making like 5% improvement, or if not 1%.
Such an engineering answer.
Exactly.
5% incremental improvements.
But it works, Yeah. And you think about it, it's like you make like even 1% improvement every single day. That's a 300%, if not 0.1. And I think we just have that mindset. And the most important thing is being open to growth and knowing that there's always someone better out there, whether it's someone, a company, and you can do things better as well. And that's how we've kind of got to where we are slowly. And I think we're still learning.
Ken's so great.
And what about yourself?
I learned from him a lot as well.
Yeah, but what about yourself in terms of challenges around leadership and?
Yeah, I think it's been a very personal journey, trying to reevaluate what I am lacking and what the company needs. And like, for example, I took it as my own personal challenge to post a public TikTok account in I think it was in the last year. I was like, hey, I have to do this because I have to help do something that makes me uncomfortable, because the more I do this, the more it will make me grow as a person. And I think it sort of came full circle. I think it was last week. Somebody had posted a review, and it basically just said, the reason why I bought from EVA is because of your founder and your vision. And I was like, oh my God, I'm an influ founder now. That was terrifying, but also it kind of helps solidify that what I'm doing is I'm doing something. And even though it's just a small little review, that it actually had an impact. And so that's sort of what has driven me to like, hey, let's just keep doing it and we'll see where it ends up.
I think that's both of your stories have been very inspiring, and especially for those who might be interested in going to e-commerce or even just changing careers, because you both had quite a drastic change as well. For those listening, we have a lot of people who might be younger generations or those also maybe questioning whether or not they want to stay in what they're doing at the moment. I guess, do you guys have any words of advice that you would like to give to our audience as well, who might be in a similar boat to where you guys were?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just thinking back at that sort of pivotal moment when I was deciding whether or not to go clinical neuropsych full-time or go to EVA full-time, I was kind of thinking, okay, if I want to be successful at something, I can't do it 50-50. I have to do 150% at something. And that's the only way I can guarantee success at something. And so at that point in time, I was like, hey, obviously I chose EVA. But I was also thinking about in sort of 10-year increments. So in 10 years from now, where will I be and what do I want to be? And I worked backwards from there. So I was thinking, okay, would I be a clinical neuropsych in the office, seeing patients full-time, or do I want to be at EVA doing the most creative and most challenging work of my life? And will that make me happy? And I chose that.
Not a regrettable decision.
Yeah. Not yet. No, not yet.
Not yet.
I'm kidding. No, definitely not.
I would say just start doing it. I think a lot of people, including myself, we get stuck in the research and analysis phase. You know, we're afraid to take the leap forward. So even myself, my first time jumping on eBay, I took, if not too long to get into it. I watched every seminar, I did as much research as I can, thinking that I have all the knowledge, but the only thing that's stopping me is actually just jumping and doing it. The moment you jump into and start doing it, there's so much more things that you haven't figured things out and like that you can never learn from, like online. And I mean, the only advice is just do it. I think Nike's been printing that logo forever, and it's a very simple advice, but just gotta do it.
Yeah,
I agree. I think it's one of the biggest hurdles that I see. I mean, even in early days of business for me was that sort of analysis paralysis, like you're almost waiting for the perfect, like the Hollywood moment. And I know you had that moment in the rain but that's a different story. But certainly I think starting off a business, most people should just get into it. That's why there's sort of different ethoses around business and MVPs and things like that, because, I think there was the realization that, if you're going to sit there all day on the computer trying to figure out what you're going to sell, you're never going to sell anything either. So I can sort of see the themes as you were telling your story. I don't know, maybe people start a mattress and a mountain biking company at the same time, but you managed to do it. So massive respect.
Just before we wrap up quickly, is there anything exciting that we can look forward to with what's coming up with EVA this year or next year?
Yes. So we are launching a sofa bed in August.
Nice.
This product also has been in development for the last 18 months. And at the time of now recording, the team is doing a photo shoot in 2 days' time. So they're going to create all the collateral for our launch in August. It's probably one of my most favorite products so far. Like Everyday Sofa, beautiful, but I think our sofa bed, which is both, the challenge was to try and make it both comfortable and beautiful as a sofa, but also comfortable, beautiful as a bed.
Yeah, wow. And
it kind of combines our experience in mattresses and also sofa making into the one.
It's a perfect love child, is it?
It is. Yeah. And it's got some sort of call outs to our timber bed frame as well, because it's also exposed wood and this sort of beautiful sliding out mechanism that is, it's probably my favorite so far.
Oh,
also one of the most challenging to manufacture.
The most challenging. Oh my gosh.
Well, hopefully you don't have to open the boxes again. Yeah, it seems to be a theme with all the products. But yeah, appreciate you guys coming on. I guess if people want to either purchase a product from you guys or they want to find out more about you guys individually, where's the best place to find you guys?
Just on LinkedIn.
Just on LinkedIn with your names? Yep. And then EVA Homes, the website is?
Yep, eva.com.au.
Not evamattresses.com.au.
It was.
Not anymore.
Another story for a different time.
That's it. No, thank you guys for coming on the show, and appreciate you actually flying up from Melbourne as well. So yeah, great to have you on the show.
No, very happy to be here.
Thanks,
and thank you for this sofa.
No, anytime.
Thanks for listening to the Level Asian podcast. Make sure you subscribe and leave us a 5-star review if you enjoyed the episode. And why not share it with friends and family who might enjoy it too? Also, make sure you head over to levelasianpodcast.com to join our email list and to receive the latest updates and get notified when the next episode drops. If you know a great guest we should feature, email us at contact@levelasianpodcast.com or DM us on our socials in the show notes. Catch you on the next episode.